if you are a neurodivergent entrepreneur or professional, whether that's ADHD, ASD, OCD, or you don't resonate with any of these labels, but you know that your brain works differently than most people, and you're one of the rare breeds that actually did very well in school, but now that you're in a 9 to 5 environment, you are struggling. You struggle to concentrate, and you constantly feel like you are on the brink of burning out and losing everything you worked so hard to accomplish. If that is you, you're going to want to stay until the end of this video, because I'm going to break down the very first step you are going to need to take in order to resolve this. Welcome back to the Neurodivergent Super Brain series, brought to you by the 25-Hour Day. My name is Colin Response. I'm an entrepreneur, internationally award-winning performing artist, and global ambassador for one of the largest luxury brands in the world. But most importantly, I did all of this with what most people call ADHD and obsessive compulsive disorder. Personally, I disagreed that it was a disorder. And so I built a business that's helped now over 150 neurodiverse entrepreneurs and professionals rewire their brains so they could cut their working hours in half and add $10,000 to $20,000 a month to their income, but most importantly, so that they could have the freedom to enjoy their everyday quality of life in the process. And today I am blessed to have our guest, Nessa. Now, Nessa works as a social psychologist and research associate in the UK, and her focus is to humanize and improve the experience of people who are at risk, whether that's marginalized people, people experiencing homelessness. And she does this by applying scientific methods to designing and evaluating public policy for some of London's most pressing social issues. And I'm so excited to have her on because she is a neurodivergent professional who, like many of you, moved into adulthood without an official diagnosis. And today, I'm going to show her why she is stuck so that she can be empowered to decide whether she wants to permanently remove the barriers from her life or not. And I'm going to do it while walking backwards. So let's get this step counter going and bring on our lovely guest, Nessa. How are you doing?
Hi, Colin. I'm doing great. I feel like I should get on my backwards walking, like looking at you. Maybe that's why you keep so fit.
No, you got to walk forwards. There's only space for one walking backwards guy. Okay.
Okay. Good. I'll leave that to you.
All right. So I have your submission. I'm going to pull it up and we'll just start by having you read it aloud.
In my teens, I figured out that I was academically gifted and that education could become my ticket out of poverty. I figured out what works for me, improved my grades, and have since built a CV that has opened unimaginable doors for me. However, ever since I started to work, I've been struggling. I struggle to concentrate, struggle to operate within the 9 to 5, to experience flow, and I lose motivation even though I'm genuinely interested in the things that I work on. I'm feeling immense pressure and constantly feel on the verge of burnout and losing it all. I sense that some of this might be classic imposter syndrome, like the feeling like a fraud. But beyond that, I also feel like I just don't function within my work environment as I should, or as one would expect, given my academic track record. I'm currently on a wait list for ADHD assessment. I should mention that everyone in my nuclear family is already diagnosed, including my mother. But in the meantime, I'd very much like help with making sense of my experience.
A lot to dig into here. That wasn't an underhanded statement. It was just more of an objective one.
Oh boy.
It's like, whoa, we got a lot of shit here we're going to have to handle. You should choose somebody else. Beep, beep, beep. Okay, so we're going to start with each one of these and we're going to go through and I'm just going to ask you the simple question of what the polarity of each one of these statements is. So you have been struggling at work. What would the polarity of struggling at work be?
To me, I would, I don't know if that's reaching too high, but I would like to excel at work. I'd like to be good, known to be good at my job.
So struggle to concentrate. What is the polarity of that for you?
To be able to lock in to a task. And also, honestly, just being able to sort of fly through my to-do list. I feel like I get distracted and then nothing gets done.
What is the polarity when you come to your mind and you say the opposite of distraction, of being distracted?
Hyper-focus, in a positive way.
Can you share with me a little bit more?
Well, I can hyper-focus, but on the wrong things. Like I get locked into sort of random tasks, especially during the workday that have nothing to do with what I actually be trying to achieve, and then I lose track of time. If I was able to direct that to the things that I want to do. And that would be amazing.
Do you think that it is more about your inability to lock, fly, focus, or does it have more to do with your ability to be clearly directed in your abilities to do these things?
I think the latter, because I've experienced like flow state before. And I still rarely experience it on like tasks that are not necessarily conducive to like how I want to live my life, or the life that I'm trying to build. So it's not, I know it's not impossible for me, but it's just, yeah, being able to choose and direct myself.
Choose. What are you truly looking to experience rather than just, I can do it?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I would embody that. Like that would be me. Yeah, it would come naturally.
The ability to choose and direct myself. It comes
Hmm.
naturally to me. Cool. As we look at struggling to operate within the 9 to 5.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with that one because I feel like while I was in university, the freedom that I had worked really well for me. So like my most productive hours would be like, yeah, during the night, early mornings, really unhealthy lifestyle as well. But I was able to produce my best work sometimes outside of those, yeah, but what are considered normal working hours. So I don't know I mean, I would love to be a morning person. That's one.
What particularly made it unhealthy, the hours you were working? Do you mean associatively, other things you were doing were unhealthy?
I think, well, at first, probably it started with sort of like the negative connotation of someone that like works overnight and sleeps into the day. That doesn't seem very sustainable within the systems that we are embedded in, unfortunately. I'm sure that could be fine, but yeah, I feel like that's not how I could work in my current role. Mainly, yeah, I always had crazy sleep patterns, and now it's become worse. Like as of 3 years ago, I really struggled to sleep through the night. So even though I'm trying to sort of adapt to this new lifestyle, I'm not really getting it to work in a way that feels healthy or where I feel like I'm operating at my highest capacity. So I suppose instead of unsustainable sleep patterns, I feel refreshed and well rested. Um, Consistent sleep. I think currently I'm all over the place. So yeah, being consistently fresh, well rested, yeah, operating at my highest potential.
Now let's speak to the sprinting before the deadline aspect. I feel like the incredibly exhausted is we did address here when we're talking about you operating at your highest potential.
Mhm.
So
I'm a master at time management.
I want to actually just dive into this one a little bit more specifically. So let's break it down to before a deadline. What would you be doing instead of sprinting right before it?
I would imagine that from the moment the task arrives on my desk, that I would sort of dissect it into small parts and make a plan of constantly chipping away at it. Instead, sometimes I feel like there's a lot of anxiety with each new task, and then that anxiety sort of puts me in a freeze state and overwhelms me. So I push it away till I can't no more because the deadline's looming over my head.
It is in comparison to the clarity that is here in the negative, it's actually largely ambiguous. Similar as if you said like being really bad at time management. Well, that would be the polarity, but we have way more clarity here. So instead of sprinting, I would have a plan once a new task arrives at my desk. I have a plan. Now we're going to break down each one of these as well. How would you want to feel when you interface with each new task?
Or instead of anxious, I would love to feel confident and competent.
Great. Tasks putting you in a freeze state. What happens?
I would immediately jump into action.
And then pushing away until the deadline comes. What comes up for you in this moment?
Um, I spread out my work, so I'm never, well, to stay in the affirmative, I guess I spread out my work and keep it manageable.
What was the language that was going to come out?
I was, what was I gonna say? I guess what that feels like when I'm sprinting towards a deadline is like in the moment, I feel very much like in that flow state. It's almost like the cortisol, like the stress is like fueling me. But then obviously afterwards, I crash like completely. And that's what keeps me feeling like I'm constantly on the verge of burning out because either I'm not productive at all or I'm very productive in a very short time span, which completely depletes me. um, so I was just going through my head that like I would keep it manageable to avoid feeling burnt out.
Keeping something manageable, it's not the polarity of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
like, that's actually not where you're looking to go. In this controlled environment, well, we're actually looking at this, we're actually breaking this down. You'll have the time to think of, well, okay, that's not affirmative, so let me just leave that out. But if we haven't actually gone through the process of reframing and choosing a more appropriate language, what will result when something is really happening and you're not the state you were in right now, which is like leveled, grounded, what will come up is the previous things you have been used to saying, feeling, experiencing, or reacting. So if we erase, we basically are robbing ourselves from the opportunity to equip ourselves with the tool we would need in that moment. So when the moment emerges, we move back to the only thing our brain has to access, which would be like, I'm going to be stressed out. I have anxiety around that. Sounds like the flow state's great. It's the result of you being depleted that's the problem. Maybe it has more to do with you having some sort of an ability to access a flow state in a way that leaves you feeling energized or accessing a flow state with ease. You see how much closer to the polarity some of the examples I shared are, like the polarity of this, rather than it being manageable. But you've already resigned yourself to, at best, I'm having an experience that I can navigate. So, what comes to you when we think about this?
To be honest, in that case, I would love to be super efficient and speed through my tasks so that I have more time to do fun stuff.
So that you can speed through your tasks and have more time to do fun stuff. If your intentions, strategies, everything was directed and just this specific area was directed towards this result versus being directed towards this result, how different do you think your experience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, a lot.
No, that is why we're here. It's not just about staying away from this, as we talked about, this umbrella. If we stay away from this, cool, maybe I'm no longer stressing myself late at night, but I'm just grinding through the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I've resolved this, but I'm still grinding through the day, and some days it's manageable. It becomes so much clearer to see when you're actually looking at examples how to resolve something through the elimination of the problem, it can never work because it's resting on, dare I say, just an incomplete perspective of how our universe is actually functioning. It is functioning in infinites, right? So to remove something by elimination in that way, it's just infinite new manifestations of that thing can and will occur. There is no actual end. You would have to be statistically very lucky for that to result in the specific experience you want to have. Whereas even in a state of infinite, the polarity also exists. If you select something, it exists because there's an infinite possibility. So you can actually select the thing and direct yourself towards it in the same way that you could select the thing you don't want and eliminate it. It's just something else will take its place. But if you select this and you achieve this, you will be in the midst of things that are in relationship in some way, shape, or form to those things, which have a significantly higher probability of being things you want to be interfacing with. because they're in the orbit of the bullseye that you've chosen, right? So I'd love to see this because this paints such a clear picture of the difference between when we think we are moving into the affirmative,
Hmm.
when this is what that looks like, something that is enjoyable or exciting, or you feel emotionally aroused in a way that is in service of you, not just, I don't feel the bad things anymore.
Hmm.
So let's keep going. I'm feeling good in my body.
I want to feel amazing in my body. I want to feel healthy and strong and smart. Flow. I am flow. I'm not sure. I guess. I mean, flow is sort of, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because what I mean when I say flow is like that state of pure enjoyment and sort of like it's almost like it's a really intense feeling where you're just like really locked into something and you feel in the moment that you got it, like you're good at what you're doing. And it's just, it keeps pouring out of you. It's sort of like a messy sort of creative practice almost that is highly addictive.
So interesting. You said it's like a messy creative practice.
That's how it feels, yeah. It feels quite intense emotionally, but in a good way. It's like all consuming.
Good. Creative. What is it that makes it feel messy?
Because to me, it's the opposite of structure. Like in those moments where I feel flow, it's like time is not a thing. It's like I may come up with structure in that feeling of flow, but it feels like almost like it's it's becoming very philosophical now, but it feels almost primal. Like it's like you cannot do anything but pour yourself into this. And that could go like all over the place. Like I could draw like a crazy mind map, and by the end of it, I have a clear idea of what it is that I produced. But the process of getting there is like more intuitive than I would normally operate in like my day to day.
That's what I was looking for.
I guess messy sounds negative, yeah,
But as you describe it more clearly, the language that comes out is that the process is intuitive, and that
mhm.
it's in polarity to the like regimented process that is typically happening, which begs me to ask the question: if it's really that you feel like it's messy, or you have a belief that it's messy due to what you've understood as what correct is.
Mm.
Because the fact that it's intuitive, it's emotionally intense in a positive way, and highly addictive, and it's producing the results that you would want. And all of this is an enjoyable, flowing experience. I'm trying to think of what is messy about that, other than perhaps like a definition of somebody's observation of something that they might not understand, or that it's contrary to something that looks linear.
I think where it comes from is that in like being sort of on the nexus of like research and academia and policy work, it's like the messy, creative, intuitive process fits neither of those fields. Like the stereotypical, when you think of the individuals operating in this field, excelling in this field, the flow state I mostly experience when writing. And I happen to choose a career that aligns very well with like my ideals. But perhaps sort of how I operate as an individual in the space is it seems quite different from most of my colleagues or the people that I work with. I think I'm still cerebral and like cognitive and all of that, but it's sort of, I also have a very prominent creative side in me that I don't get to unleash all that often. If that makes sense.
You said that the way that your brain works seems to differ greatly from a lot of your colleagues in that aspect of creativity and, well, a lot of other areas. I'm curious from your perspective, do you believe that is a hindrance to you or a benefit to you?
Honestly, I'm not quite sure at this stage in my life. I think like I see a lot of differences between myself and most of my colleagues, most of the people in my field on so many different areas, sort of background, lifestyles, interests, but also sort of like how I feel like my brain operates versus how they might function or how they might present themselves. Um, Now, because I felt so stuck, I am questioning whether I picked the right role. I'm quite happy with the field. I'm really happy with the things I get to work on. But I'm wondering if those differences, yeah, if they are more beneficial or a hindrance to me in the space that I'm in.
I'm glad I asked this specifically because I want to know the polarity of questioning if your differences are valuable.
Mhm. Convinced that I'm worthy and valuable.
When I read the statement that you're convinced that you're worthy and valuable, I don't know that you are questioning as a whole if you are worthy and valuable versus questioning this in the context of where you
Hmm.
are in your role. So I'm curious to know.
I mean, it depends. I think right now you're meeting me in a time where I am slightly more convinced of my worth than my value, but I've definitely struggled with self-worth, and that's something, it's a big topic that I deal with in therapy. Um, sort of that concern or fear of how I'm perceived, people leaving, all of that sort of, yeah, I do think there's a lot to dig in, which definitely translates into my professional existence as well as like my personal and social life.
Got you.
Although it's more pronounced in my professional because it's, I don't know, the differences are more salient. I surround myself with really good people in my day to day.
So it's that and these other manifestations of that. I'm just going to get to this right here. To be convinced is like to be persuaded. It's very different than being embodied or being
Mm-hmm.
certain or being grounded in. Being convinced feels like,
Like I have
it,
doubts.
yeah, to be convinced almost subsupposes that it's not necessarily true. And
Mm-hmm.
so we want to move towards the language that actually is doing the opposite. It's subsupposing that it is true. So what are some examples of language that are even more effective than the word convinced?
Could it just be I feel or I am?
Okay. Maybe invaluable. So this would work. Had you said this initially, I would have been like, great. But because we said convinced, like I always say, we do not want to erase, we want to replace. So what are some other language that you could use for instead of convinced?
I feel.
Okay. There you go. Excellent. Okay. Now, as we're talking about as it relates to your role,
I know that my differences bring value to my role.
big difference here.
Mm.
Now, you spoke about some of the stuff from a personal perspective. So let's look at the polarity of that as well. You mentioned there has been some doubts of how valuable you felt in other aspects of your life. So what are
Mm.
those aspects so we can look at the affirmative?
It's probably like a sort of anxiety around feeling whether or not I'm lovable, which although I feel sort of up and down with that in my personal life, sort of the theme that comes up in therapy is that like I that part is much more adaptive, or sort of the strategies that I've developed in my personal life are much more adaptive. Like I seek connection. I have great friends. So whenever those feelings do come up, like I'm able to address them. Whereas I feel quite alienated from my field of work.
So you feel like these things still occur, but you have tools that when they occur, they can be resolved. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, yeah. Tools like of self-soothing, but also just great friends that I can like talk like about these things. Whereas I wouldn't, I hope my boss doesn't see this, but I wouldn't necessarily go up to my boss, and express sort of, I feel like I suck.
To present an example for those folks watching it, how different would it be to approach your employer and say, I feel like I suck, versus approaching your employer and saying, I'm looking to be more efficient in the work that I'm doing so that I can complete these tasks in a
Hmm.
more enjoyable way for everyone. And if you were looking for support in those particular directions, how different and more applicable their ability to assist you and your ability to get that guidance would be. Because you might be right. In historically speaking, like if you were to ask, I feel like I suck, because like, you probably wouldn't get much out of it. They're kind of like, well, what do you want me to do? And most neurodiverse folks end up in this internal cycle of looking to self resolve or self soothe the situation because it doesn't seem like there are any real means that actually can help facilitate. But it's
Mm.
not necessarily that those things don't exist. It's that the mechanism being used to access those things is actually just not one that would be conducive to what you're actually looking to achieve.
Hmm.
Okay, awesome. So you know your differences bring value to your role. Now we have the anxiety around feeling lovable. So we want to look at the polarity of that.
People
That
love and
near.
adore me.
Love
No,
and
maybe
adore me.
appreciate. Maybe appreciate instead of adore. I don't need to be adored.
I adore you. Yes. Okay.
Hey. For the record, can never erase this.
Edit that out.
Just leave it in.
So let's speak about the anxiety aspect. Specific, not actually speak about, but I mean, let's use that language and be like, what's the polarity of the anxiety around it?
I feel assured. Sort of like I feel calm knowing.
There we go. Having a calmness from a physiological, somatic
Yeah,
experience, that feels more like the polarity.
yeah, 100%. I feel
Knowing?
calm knowing
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. That's what we're talking about right here.
that people love and appreciate me and call and adores me.
Okay, cool. We're almost at the bottom here. What is the polarity of losing motivation?
I'm passionate. I'm passionate and driven. Like sort of like a continuous, feel like there's constantly more to uncover. And I feel curious and like there's constantly more to uncover.
Feeling immense pressure.
I'm a fairy. I feel light.
She was a fairy with a fatty.
She's pretty good though.
The difference between immense pressure is feeling
Mhm.
light. All right, let's keep going. On the verge of burnout.
I am operating at my highest potential.
Are you? Is that like your question? I'm operating on the highest potential.
Potential, full stop.
No, but all jokes aside, I love that that was a question because this is the catch-all that we got. I'm operating at my highest potential. I'm
Right.
operating at my highest potential. I am operating at my highest capacity. So let's look at
It's like a wild card.
yeah, exactly. It's like, what does that really mean? Highest potential.
We're playing bullshit bingo.
That's after this session. Okay, so on the verge of burnout.
And I can't say potential. Mm, quite on top of the world, like even just somatically, because being on the verge of burnout, that's really tiring, let me tell you. So yeah, the opposite would be feeling invincible, strong.
Perfect. Perfect. What I wanted to introduce you to here in this is what I call the sweet spot. As we go through this, through all the language that's happened, we reach a point where we notice that somebody's language that they're using for something underneath this umbrella, as they're looking to get over here, there's one moment
Mhm.
where there's a blank. What even would the opposite of burning out? I don't even have language for it. Being on the verge of burnout is a very intense emotional state of being. It's a very
Mhm.
compromising state of being. When you're in that zone or area, what do you think the probability is that you're accessing the processes or whatever would be required for you to experience something enjoyable to you if in an environment like this, you can't even think of what that would even be?
Mhm. Quite low.
Quite low. It's no coincidence that you've experienced that thing so much because each time you experience it, you impress that into your subconscious as important information. Burning out, the somatic feeling of that information is imprinting itself into your neurology. So now your senses are looking for and are seeing and are sensing more environments, contexts, or circumstances to be burnt out. And it is doing nothing when it comes to feeling on top of the world because it's not even accessing that. It's not, there
Mhm.
could be a myriad of things around you that would actually enable you to feel increasingly closer to feeling like on top of the world, but you literally will not see those things. As spiritual of a person I am, I'm talking about from a scientific perspective, your actual senses, you will not see those things.
Mhm. Yeah, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes, literally.
Mhm.
Your brain will delete that information, even if it's right in front of you. So this is so great to feel on top of the world, to feel strong, to feel invincible. These are the questions we can start to ask ourselves. What would I need to do? What are the things that make me feel like I'm on top of the world? How could those things be integrated into these environments? Just questions coming off the top of my head that are impossible to ask when all I'm trying to do is get away from this.
Mhm. I'm optimized. or I'm perfectly adapted to my work environment.
Big fucking difference between I'm doing the best that I can and I feel like I'm perfectly adapted to my work environment.
Hmm.
What different questions would you ask yourself if you had to say, okay, what would I need to adjust to feel perfectly adapted to my work environment? Versus what would you need to change right now to do the best you can? Probably nothing, right? Like you are
Yeah.
presently doing the best you can. If an opportunity comes up that could possibly help you do better, it's like, well, I'm going to take that thing. But what other things
Hmm.
are already accessible to you, but just not in your scope of perception because of what your brain presently believes is important? Not based on
Hmm.
what you want, but based on what you have taught your brain is important unintentionally.
Hmm.
Let's get to the bottom of this.
We can't aspire to something that we can't envision. And I have definitely been very focused and all consumed with sort of what I feel like I'm lacking, so to speak, or like my, again, very negative language, but like sort of what I feel like I was deficient in. And seeing this new list, even just reading through it, it puts language to what I want to be and what I want to embody and what I want to feel. It feels like there's a goalpost now, whereas before it was just an aversive state trying to avoid what I very much felt consumed by.
You shared the most important statement, which was, I still don't quite know how to achieve all of these things. The purpose of the series is not to wave a magic wand. In 45 minutes, now all your problems are resolved because I have a shawl. No, the whole purpose of this series is to expand your perspective so that you can actually see the key thing that is preventing you from ever possibly reaching that resolution. Because most of the time, most of the energy, most of the money is being spent to resolve the symptoms of the problem that are infinitely reoccurring, rather than being able to direct oneself towards what the actual first step has to be in order to achieve the result that you want, which will eliminate the things you do not want. So if you are watching this and you're saying to yourself, I have spent so much time, I have spent so much money, I have spent so much energy to try to resolve these same things, but I've been unable to resolve them. I'm here to tell you the problem is not you. The problem is that you have not learned how to leverage the way that the neurodivergent brain naturally works. And if you do not do that, what's going to happen is you will find yourself in a place that you're going to need to spend a lot of time and energy to figure out how to achieve each one of those things. I can promise you the reason why you've paid for mentors or productivity apps, or you're trying to body doubling or the Pomodoro method, and you still have the issue, is because all of those things entirely neglect the core neurological reasons that you have these challenges with procrastination, analysis paralysis, perfectionism, all these things that are preventing you from producing the results that you want. There is a simpler way. So if you are somebody who wants to cut your working hours in half so that you can enjoy your everyday quality of life, click the link that is in the description to this video, because that is what the 25-hour day is all about. It is helping those folks who have decided, I know what it is I'm looking to achieve, and I'm ready to remove those barriers from my life permanently. Or you can continue to spend more time, more energy, more money than you need to. If you want to do things at half the time and with half the energy you're putting in right now, click that link. And if it's resonant with you, permanently remove these barriers from your life. Until then, I'd like to give a very, very special thank you to our lovely guest, who I adore. Vanessa, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has been really helpful.
See you next time.
When I see my therapist next, I can say that I actually did something.